The Tertiary Education Trust Fund, or TETFund for short, is a model intervention agency of the federal government of Nigeria, which was created out of necessity due to the pressure from different groups in the country, particularly the Academic Staff Union of Universities. Following the swath of reforms in Nigeria's public service, a number of agencies were created, among which is TETFund, charged with the responsibility of resuscitating, storing, and consolidating tertiary education in Nigeria. Since 2011 and thereafter, the fund has come up with various programs of interventions that would promote excellence in scholarship and research. TETFund has 13 intervention lines and annually disburses funds to 213 public tertiary institutions in the country, with the aim of creating a conducive environment for teaching and learning. So far, the fund has spent close to 1.5 trillion naira on its interventions in form of physical infrastructure, equipment, and content. Standing out among these intervention lines are the tertiary academic staff training and development, manuscript development, conference attendance, and finally, research and development, which is the main focus area of the fund for now. All these interventions have had a profound transformative impact on Nigeria's public higher learning institutions and created a symbiotic relationship between the intervention agency and all public universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. The institutions themselves are the first to bear witness to how accessible TETFund is to them.
Always accessible, always ready to help. I mean, the executive secretary of TETFund, the best human being in the world, exceptionally accessible. Even if you don't come, he goes. I mean, if you don't go, he comes, to look at what is happening and to say, look, let's work together. And research especially has been one of his things, and is supporting us.
Libra executive secretary of TETFund, Professor Bogoro, you can walk into his office anytime. Yeah, you can walk into his office anytime. You can even call him and he will answer. So for me personally, I have a good relationship with him. In fact, sometimes I blame myself for not taking advantage of this relationship so well. I know they are precious on him and things like that. But on few occasions that I went there, he has given me opportunity, listened to me, and assured me of the assistance. And that is on his own part. The other part, these are the other people, whether Zona or something like that, and they give it at and when due.
They have a system. They have guidelines that is working. Provided you follow the guidelines and you fulfill all the obligations, TETFund is there to respond appropriately. So that's what I can say about TETFund. Definitely, if you fulfill all the guidelines, at the same time they will respond positively to your need. So the relationship between the college and the TETFund is a very, very cordial relationship.
This cordial and close relationship was on full display when the executive secretary of TETFund, Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro, recently hosted the annual briefing of heads of beneficiary institutions of TETFund. The event commenced with the TETFund boss himself setting the tone. His presentation largely focused on the TETFund intervention budget for 2021, confirming that the agency's income has seen consistent year-on-year increment.
I'm very happy to welcome you, and I want to say somehow the budget, we've noticed consistent increment. We wish it were far more than that. Don't forget that our budget derives from the 2% education tax, accessible tax of profit-making entities in Nigeria. And last year's budget, we noticed an increment over that of the previous year. This year, I'm pleased to inform you that there has been an increment again. So what we have, Mr. President has approved, is a total of 292 billion naira, 666 million, etc.
The executive secretary stressed the need to pay close attention to the development of libraries in Nigerian tertiary education institutions, in states, in cities, and even in communities. There was a pivotal moment during Professor Bogoro's briefing as he announced that the National Library project in Abuja, which was hitherto abandoned due to paucity of funds, will be taken over and completed by TETFund. The cheery news is as a result of recommendations made by the Honorable Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, after a series of consultations. The TETFund commits funds to the completion of what would no doubt become a national monument.
You are aware that we have a very huge national library in Abuja. Am I right? You will see it's almost become one of those derelict infrastructure, massive. But hardly has there been improvement for nearly 10 years. It was discussed, and TETFund was invited when at a presidential legacy committee meeting, I made the case that we need to commit TETFund money to the completion of the National Library. Obviously, scholarship, especially through research, is central. And you cannot undertake research if you do not refer to documented knowledge through outcomes of research, investigation, and scholarship. And that is what you find in the repositories called libraries. You go to many countries, but even in our country, there are a number of states, a number of local governments and communities that have community libraries. Am I talking sense? That underlines the importance of libraries in knowledge enterprise. And Nigeria, very sadly, what we see are derelict infrastructure level libraries. And if you go there, in most cases, there is no AC. Even the fans have collapsed. You cannot sit with comfort to read or want to access information documented either through journals, all sorts of serials, textbooks, monographs, can go on and on. That is unacceptable. And I remember the discussion went on at the committee, and they were not sure whether it does not conflict with TETFund law for TETFund to fund the completion of the library, National Library. And I said yes. The law of TETFund has a 4th section that gives discretion to the Board of Trustees to apply the funds to incidental areas relevant to the major previously listed intervention priorities. And they were convinced. And that is how we proceeded. And the Honorable Minister took the advice of the committee and recommended that TETFund commits money to complete the library. Previously, some huge fund amounts had been mentioned. I am not going to mention the specific amount, but we are hoping that with this intervention that has been approved by Mr. President, underlying the importance of library as a central element of scholarship and education, we may soon, perhaps in matter of months, see the completion of the National Library.
Research and development has been a passion for Professor Bogoro, essentially because it is the key that unlocks the diversification of Nigeria's economy, making it more competitive. In line with this objective, the ES announced the approval of 217 research grants, being the highest number to have ever been approved.
I signed the letters of allocation for the How many are the research grants we are issuing out? 217. This is the highest number of research grants ever. It had never gone to 200. We have 217 research grants that have recently been approved NRF.
He, however, had a word of caution for institutions that divert intervention funds and those that are slow in executing TETFund projects.
I take advantage at this meeting to speak generally about some of the issues that we have encountered. There are many of you, heads of institutions, that I can tell you we are very happy to receive you in TETFund because you have done it right. You have gone by the books. And talking about going by the books, we have had cases of some institutions diverting TETFund money for other purposes, either than what has been specified or as approved, the approval in principle, which you know is the basis for which you proceed to implement that particular project or those particular projects. And the Board of Trustees has decided firmly, and we know that we had to apply sanctions. We've had cases. We are taking these things very serious. There are some institutions that we've discovered they are slow in implementing our projects. A project that should take maximum 1 to 1.5 years is taken 7, 8, 9, 10 years. It's because of that we decided only recently to mop up funds that have not been utilized, have been lying there for institutions. We did the mop up in 2019, we have just done it again, and we wrote the institutions where we had to mop up their funds. I can assure you, where TETFund monies have been diverted for any purpose other than what we approved, we have a firm position. We write and insist that the monies be paid back into the TETFund account. We've done that. I'm sure many of you know it. We've done that, and we will enforce it even stronger going forward. The Board of Trustees had told me to let you know this.
After the Executive Secretary's briefing, the next item on the agenda was the distribution of intervention allocation letters to heads of tertiary institutions for all 6 geopolitical zones of the country.
TETFund, you have done well. Sometimes I begin to wonder what academic tertiary institutions would have been in this country without the presence and activities of TETFund. I still remember with nostalgia what happened before the inception of TETFund, when we have to carry samples, when we have to look for laboratories abroad, when we have to look for everything, look for foreign research funds, when we have to look for everything. If you want to publish a paper, you have to do so many things to make sure you have affiliation with a foreign laboratory. And now TETFund has softened, made some of these things very, very easier. And that's what I tell the younger ones, that you people are lucky that you came at the point TETFund is equipping your laboratory, giving you research grants, making sure you attend conferences, especially the international conferences. We are very, very grateful on behalf of MAM, making this, giving these thanks on behalf of my colleagues. And again, convey our sincere greetings to TETFund. And also the taxpayer, whose money that we are utilizing in form of education tax and all the rest of them.
A lot for us, especially in the College of Education system. Sir, the issue of allocation keep rising exponentially, contrary to the economic reality in this country. With the pandemic, where resources are dwindling, we expect a downward trend in the allocations given to us, but reverse is the case. So we thank you very much sincerely. We also want to appreciate and thank you for gingering us, especially in the College of Education system, on the issue of research and development. My Chairman, Committee of Provost of College of Education of Nigeria is here, and I'm sure we're going to work together as a committee to sensitize our members, academic staff, to see how we can move forward and respond to the challenge you have posed to us.
Appreciate the Executive Secretary of TETFund for the marvelous work they have been doing over the time. And I want to also acknowledge that there's a team of investigators that come to our school, and we are fair to acknowledge that the Polytechnic is a TETFund Polytechnic. Because every visible and acknowledgeable project being seen there have the inscription of TETFund. And there is one area that has been of concern to me before I come to this place. I'm surprised to note that it has been addressed. The issue of hostel accommodation for our students has been a concern to me before I come to this place. However, it has been addressed. There's one thing I also want to say before I exit this podium. Our Executive Secretary made mention of research for development rather than research for promotion. Over the time I know that lecturers and teachers in the universities have to tinker for a researchable project to undertake their research. For you to research for development, you must be close to the problem you want to solve. I want to say that the industries and institutions should have a tie. TETFund can do that for us. The problems they have in their industry should be brought to the foremost glare of the institutions so that research can be geared towards in that direction. Currently now, lecturers have to sit, read other people's journals, try to get knowledge gaps to know where their research could fall. We are only now looking for knowledge gaps to fill in our researches. The problems that have been encountered in institutions are not brought close to us for us to engage on productive research. For us to achieve this research for development, the industries and the institutions must have a close tie and relationship.
The paradigm shift sought to know from the beneficiary institutions themselves to what extent TETFund interventions have contributed to their growth.
TETFund has done exceptionally well in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of capacity building of our staff members, as well as other areas. And I tell you, which of course I have no apology, but for TETFund, I am sure our universities would have been suffering and probably gone back to the old age. But so TETFund has done a lot.
In Nigeria today, if you go to any tertiary institution and you see massive infrastructural development, TETFund is largely responsible for this. Without TETFund, I don't know what will be the state of the infrastructure of tertiary institutions in Nigeria today. So we are grateful that we have an institution like TETFund in our country that is helping the university, colleges of education and polytechnics to be able to raise their heads above the water.
We've really benefited in both academics, research, academic staff training, institutional-based research, journal, manuscript development, and then coming to the physical infrastructure. In fact, to be candid with you, without TETFund, I wouldn't know what the educational sector of Nigeria would have been.
My institution is a very young institution. To be candid to you, the emergence of TETFund and this intervention has given a lot of boost to the college. And with that infrastructure coming in, the society and the students in particular are now confident that the future of higher education in Nigeria is laudable. Above all, it has given a lot of leverage to the state governments, I think, assisting those states that are not able to meet up with various programs like accreditation and other developmental activities.
Everybody was expecting at least the allocation to probably go down, considering the economic realities in Nigeria. But we can see that the allocation has even been increased, and therefore it's a task on the benefiting institutions to ensure that there is a judicious utilization of this fund and to make sure that there is an improvement on the quality of our teaching and research. And I believe it shall be so.
The levels of educational attainment that we want to get is driven by funds, and so with added funds, of course, that has given us a better leverage, a better platform to develop.
Quality of education, there's a range between the quality of education and then the state of infrastructure. When there's infrastructure decay, there will be low quality of output. So with the annual and regular intervention of TETFund, as demonstrated once again this year, we have the confidence that we'll be able not only to sustain, but to increase or to improve the level of the quality of our offering in our institutions.
Location, in actual fact, is a blessing, because the TETFund project has already commenced in my college, and with this one now coming in, is going to massively put more developmental efforts to the college.
With the TETFund Taxpayers Forum event immediately preceding the Executive Secretary's annual briefing of beneficiary institutions, it's easy to draw a straight line which clearly links the compliance with 2% education tax charged on assessable profits of all registered companies in Nigeria to the steady improvement of quality education at the tertiary level. The opportunity being created here is twofold. First, the academia can finally become the engine room for innovations that drive Nigeria's economic transformation once research outcomes are scaled up by these same tax-paying industries. Second, the quality of graduates produced by improved tertiary institutions can become the brains that will grow the profitability of the industry for the next generation. As such, the education tax is not really a levy, but an investment in your company's future. And that is the paradigm shift.